Hey there, before I start this video, I wanted to make sure I set a goal for this channel. If I reach 100 subscriptions on YouTube, I'll take the time to buy a booster box of the most current Pokemon TCG packs and do a showcase video of it. I'll be giving away cards to you if you also sub to me on Twitch. For each of you that sub to me on Twitch, I'll provide the digital cards to you. Not only that, but I will also be doing a physical trading card giveaway to any of you lucky ones. The digital card from the pack is my way of saying everybody's a winner. Another thing is you can give subs to me on Twitch. If you do that, then you get an X number of digital cards for every sub that you give, and of course will increase your chances of winning the giveaway. This is just a plan and idea, but if you feel that you want to get involved, then go to the link below the description. Also, do not forget to join my Discord to be up to date, and it will all be in the description below. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can get some ideas of how to defeat Greninja on Poison Terra, or Terra type Poison. Of course, we do not know if Greninja is going to be a special attacker or a physical attacker, but we're going to probably keep it to where it may more likely be a physical attacker. But here are some ideas that you can get with, see if there are any Pokemon you want to go ahead and train for before that day comes. Of course, this is just scratching my head, trying to present some ideas, see if we can go around all that. But before I get things started, feel free to leave anything in the comment section below if you have any other ideas or any other setups that we can do for the Greninja raid. It is going to be 7 stars, it's going to be hard, so if you have any ideas that could have Pokemon that are more aggressive or have some support Pokemon, feel free to leave it down below. And let's go ahead and get things started. As you can see, we got Lucario. This one's just more into the physical attacking side, but try to find ways to make it more interesting or make it a little bit more strong to beat. Just know that when you do the Terra raids, the other sets are not really necessary, but it just depends on how the situation goes. You are not really doing anything competitive, so you do have to make sure that you have to sacrifice some of the EVs to compensate for the other ones. Like this Lucario, for example, we all know about its jolly nature. You know how to when it goes to its max speed. I mean, that is to where it is more into the competitive side, but now that we're in the Terra raids, you don't have to worry too much when it comes to the competitive stats. For now, you have to focus on the stats that value more into the raids. Like, if you know, Cinderace was more into the physical attacking side, so you had to find a way to counter it. Either you had to use Pokemon with a lot of stat heavy boosting, or you had to find Pokemon that could weaken it down. But like I said, there are some ideas you can get with. I mean, there are ones that I did not put up yet, but maybe we can probably look back into it. But of course, this may be an idea. Bulk up, Earthquake, Screech. It's not going to do that much against Greninja, but because of nullifying abilities, and then you have to restack everything up, you don't even know if it's going to raise its stats, which is very unlikely. You never know. Sometimes it's always good to go ahead and probably go for more of its defense too. And then there are other ones like Vaporeon. I did happen to come across that one. I didn't even thought that that's gonna be something to consider on. I did see Vaporeon in one of the posts in Facebook, so I was like, okay, probably look into it. I think what somebody chose was a Chill Bell to go with it, so something that you can think about. It's because Greninja is going to be a poison type or a Terra type poison. then store power, like the same kind of stack up deal that you have to do with Slowbro, but it's gonna be a little bit slower. Of course, knowing of what's gonna happen, Vaporeon may be the best choice if Greninja is a special attacker, which will be with Dark Pulse, and that's to where Slowbro will be not useful against Greninja. But in other ways, Slowbro can, but we don't know how everything will play out. But more likely, we just have to go ahead and assume that Greninja is gonna spam out Dark Pulse every time Slowbro is around. But of course, what you're seeing is that you do have to increase the HP, and then you do have to increase the special attack to make. But that alone, it's gonna require a little bit more support, a little bit more boost, more shears to make all this work out and to make Vaporeon more into the one-shooter side. As long as you're using Acid Armor first, you should be good. As long as it's to where Greninja is more into the special attack, then it should be helpful to use Vaporeon to, you know, mix up its special defense, or you don't really have to. But this is just another way of keeping your Pokemon alive, because the goal of a 7-star raid is to make sure that you're being stat heavy, make sure that you take less damage, and of course making sure that the Pokemon you're going up against is taking less damage too. Depending on how much damage input you put on the Pokemon, you're going to cause the Pokemon to use its abilities. Nullifying ability is the most threatening, or it's going to get rid of its own stats. And it could also shield itself, which will make the one-shots even more difficult to come across. But as long as you know what kind of Pokemon setup you're going for, probably be the best if you have ones that could have good defense, good special defense, and not take a lot of knockouts. Because the more knockouts it is, the difficult it is going to be for the raid. But of course, if you don't know what the Slowbro method was from the Cinderace raid, I would highly suggest you to watch the Slowbro video I made earlier and see how everything plays out, and then just watch some of the videos of the Slowbro that I use to knock out Cinderace, or build it up to where Cinderace gets knocked out, and see the Pokemon how they play out. It is all because that you don't have to rely on over one Pokemon to actually take out that Pokemon. You do have to rely on the shears, you do have to rely on what the other trainers are using to support you in beating the Pokemon, like the Cinderace. Even having all the stacks and everything is there, it's not enough to actually take down Cinderace. Sometimes you do have to find the trainers that could use Acid Spray, Clear Smog to make Cinderace easier to beat. But now that we're looking at Greninja, you have to look at other ways to beat Greninja. Sometimes using the Pokemon that you have against Cinderace is not going to be very useful against Greninja, which are, you could say, Armarouge with Clear Smog. That's not going to be useful because Armarouge is now a fire type. Greninja, even though it's a Terra type poison, it can still use water move, and it's not as good against it. So you do have to make other ways to get different kind of Pokemon. And then the other things that more likely you do probably have to avoid using Psychic type Pokemon too, knowing that it may spam Dark type moves. So that's the other thing to look into. And of course, with what's going on with Fear, Water Absorb is a good one when it comes to water attacks, which will make Greninja use less moves against Vaporeon on water typing, which is not gonna be shown as much. It could be using other movesets or different typing. Yeah, so just make sure you increase that Acid Armor, Calm Mind, and then store power to finish off Greninja. But of course it's going to be a slow build, so you do have to be very patient going against Greninja, because it would take about let's say this one takes about 3 turns to max it up. This take about 6 turns, so you got 10 turns to get store power operating. Which is why it's more important that all the other trainers will use the shears to make sure it helps Vaporeon get closer to max as soon as possible. But of course, the other things, you don't really have to focus on going for one shooting or one-shotting. That's why you do have support Pokemon, so even if it's everything gets nullified, then it's all good. You can rebuild it, Calm Mind it, and then have whatever leftover shears you have. Now this is another idea I'm going across on Lucario. Something to think about. It's gonna be HP 252, defense 252, and special attack 4. So this is gonna be a ball nature, so something a little bit more creative. Something to where Lucario can be both a supporter as well as a special attacker. But just take notice that of what you're going up against in a level 7 or 7-star raid, it's not gonna be easy, and even with everything that you do, everything that you stack up on Lucario or stack up on the Pokemon, it's just gonna be almost like not even a quarter of a damage. So be wary of it. That's why this setup, you just put Iron Defense. If it's a physical attacker, start doing Nasty Plot, Metal Sound, and then Psychic, so that it could put a lot of hit to Greninja. But of course, like I said, Vaporeon is going to be also important too, so as long as you see these two, that should be useful. Metal Sounds, and then Vaporeon building up its Calm Mind after maximizing its acid armor is pretty good. And then with Metal Sound, that should make it more vulnerable for a one-shot on Greninja. Of course, that is the goal, but if it doesn't come to it, then you do have to start thinking of other steps, other plans. It's, like I say, it's not important to have the one-shot, but if there are any other good Pokemon that could help with the one-shot, then that's useful. Or it would take like 2 or 3 shots, even if it gets shielded. Like I say, there are other ways you can do it. And then there are some other ones. I mean, this one's just iffy. Of course, Coil, Earthquake, Rock Tomb, Helping Hand. Earthworm doesn't have much movesets. It's pretty hard to deal with. But as long as it has Coil, that's pretty good. Earthquake, and then Helping Hand. Rock Tomb is actually something I'm not sure about, but because of how limited the movesets are, it kind of forces you to use what it has left. But I mean, if we can find Metal Sound, which is illegal, then that's the downside of it. It will be very useful if it can do it, but you just have to work with what you have left. Earthworm provides, it's more likely going to be a supporter Pokemon more than a aggressive Pokemon, which is why we put Helping Hand for Vaporeon, and Vaporeon is going to be the main attacker. And then we can move on to Magnezone, do Athletic, because we all know that Magnezone is supposed to be very slow. Of course, you don't have to set the natures I'm setting up, you can set it up whichever you like. And of course, it's just the same kind of almost build up that I've been doing with the other Pokemon: Iron Defense, Metal Sound, Reflect, and Thunderbolt. But if it's going to become more of a special attacker or more like a mix attacker, then you can always mix it around with Light Screen too. But it's more likely going to be using a lot of water typing moves. But it's going to be... hopefully it's not going to be as bad, but the build for Magnezone should be good against Greninja. As long as you have Iron Defense, it's going to be harder for Greninja to take it out. Metal Sound for Vaporeon, and Reflect to make it way harder for Greninja to knock any Pokemon out. The more stacks and everything that you put, more effects that you put, the easier it is to make the best build that you can make to defeat Greninja. And then Techaton, this is just an idea to go with stacks as well. Not as much to go by with Techaton as well. Pick Tears is probably going to be a good one. Lowers the special defense by 2, which will help store power. Reflect, just to make it harder for Greninja to take anybody out. Baby Doll Eyes, Priority, lowers the attack by 1, and it's not as helpful. If it learns Charm, then that should work a little bit better. But from the looks of it, it doesn't have Charm, so you have to use that. Water Shurikens, physical attacks, at least they will lower it to the point where Greninja is not much of a threat. Ice Hammer, since water typing Greninja doesn't technically exist. Poison type, it should help lower the speed by 1. I mean, there are other ways that you can do it. It doesn't have to be that way, but knowing that it is a Terra type poison, probably stay away from fairy types. And even if it has a poison type move, then it's just going to be neutral because it's a steel type. Now, there are other ideas. Let's see. Okay, so another Pokemon you can think about could be Toxapex. At least you get that idea if you want to go for defense, special defense. Good way to think about the mix of it. Now, we can use Acid Spray, that's a good one to use. Physical Attacker, Iron Defense. And then Recover. Best way you can do is just go for Mud Shot. Make it more into the special attack. It's not going to do too much, but every little helps. Make it more Bull Nature. If it's going to be defense, probably do that too. Give it a little bit on special attack. Like I say, it's not going to be doing much. Toxapex is going to be more supporting, more of a supporter, so poison type against a poison type is pretty good to go for. If it has Star Pulse, if it's going to become a special attacker, then you can always switch it around, go from there. 383 is not that bad. Anyway, could work. And like I said, Acid Spray is pretty much going to be useful. At least the goal is that as long as Greninja is not going to get that much damage, then you are actually good to go. So, if there are any other Pokemon that you can think of or any other Pokemon that you want to add, feel free to leave it in the comments below. We can probably look at it and we can see what we can do from there. And if you want to know more of what's going on in the game, feel free to leave a subscribe and then always leave the bell on. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Hope it helps you get the idea. You don't have to do the same kind of setups that I'm doing. You can do whichever setup that you like to do. It doesn't have to be the same kind of nature. It doesn't have to be the EV stats I'm giving. It doesn't even have to be IV. Everything is all up to you. It's however you want to create your Pokemon and however that you want to beat the raid. You can always join my Discord, the Failed Clone Army, be part of the Failed Clone Ditto to one day revolt against Giovanni. Anyways, I hope that you enjoy watching. I hope that everything's all useful, and I'll see you on the next video.